Robert and Mike exchanged worried glances. Maria's chair sat empty. They had been exploring the abandoned bungalow for hours, its musty air thick with the silence of forgotten years. Maria had insisted on searching the attic. Just a quick peek, she had promised. Now the shadows were lengthening, and she was nowhere to be found. Robert. Maria. Robert's voice echoed through the empty rooms, unanswered. A shiver ran down his spine despite the summer heat. Something felt wrong, deeply wrong. He remembered the stories, whispered by the village elders, about the bungalow being haunted, a place where the living strayed at their own peril. Robert. Stay here, Mike, Robert instructed, his voice tight with apprehension. He knew Mike was scared, and rightfully so. This dilapidated bungalow held an unsettling aura, a palpable sense of unseen eyes watching their every move. He grabbed a rusty lantern from the floor, its wick sputtering to life, casting dancing shadows on the crumbling walls. He had to find Maria. As Robert cautiously ascended the creaking stairs, his heart pounded in his chest, a drumbeat urging him forward into the unknown. The air grew colder, the musty odor intensifying, making him gag. He raised the lantern, its feeble light struggling to penetrate the oppressive darkness. Robert. Maria? He called out again, his voice trembling slightly. The only response was the eerie silence, heavier than before, pressing down on him like a suffocating blanket. Fear, cold and clammy, tightened its grip on his chest. He had to find her, and quickly. The attic was a cavernous space, cluttered with remnants of forgotten lives. Cobwebs, thick as shrouds, hung from every beam, and dust lay heavy on the discarded furniture and ancient trunks. Robert's footsteps echoed on the warped floorboards, each creak sounding like a whispered warning. The air felt heavy, thick with the weight of secrets and sorrow. He moved cautiously, the lantern casting grotesque shapes on the walls. The shadows seemed to writhe and twist, mocking his fear with their silent dance. The hair on the back of his neck prickled with a sudden chill. He felt a presence, unseen but palpable, watching him from the shadows. He reached a corner where a pile of old trunks lay stacked haphazardly. As he neared them, his foot slipped on a patch of damp, rotted wood. The lantern tumbled from his grasp, clattering to the floor with a bone-jarring thud. Darkness descended, absolute and suffocating. Panic surged through him. He fumbled for the lantern, his fingers closing on the cold, damp metal. As he struggled to right it, he felt it, a cold, clammy hand closing around his wrist. A gasp escaped his lips, a strangled cry lost in the thick silence of the attic. The hand tightened its grip, sending a jolt of icy terror through Robert. He struggled to pull away, his heart pounding against his ribs. But the grip was inhumanly strong, unyielding. Robert? Let go! He gasped, pulling with all his might. The hand resisted for a moment, then abruptly released its grip. Robert stumbled backward, his heart racing. He scrambled for the lantern, his fingers trembling as he fumbled with the flint and steel. Finally, a spark caught, and the wick sputtered back to life, casting a flickering light on his surroundings. He looked around wildly, his breath catching in his throat. There, in the center of the room, stood Maria. But she was different. Her eyes were wide and unseeing, her face pale and drawn, and in her hands she held a small, wooden chest, its surface intricately carved with strange symbols. Robert? Maria? What's wrong? But Maria didn't answer. She just stood there, her gaze fixed on the chest in her hands. Slowly she opened it, revealing a dazzling array of jewels and gold coins. It was a treasure beyond imagination, hidden away for centuries in this dusty attic. Downstairs, Mike paced restlessly, his anxiety growing with each passing moment. He could feel the oppressive weight of the old bungalow pressing down on him, the silence amplifying every creak and groan of the aging structure. He strained to hear any sound of Robert or Maria, his imagination conjuring up terrifying scenarios in their absence. Suddenly, he heard a blood-curdling scream echoing from the bowels of the house. He froze, his blood turning to ice in his veins. It was Charles, his voice raw with terror. Seconds later, Charles came hurtling down the stairs, his face contorted in fear, his eyes wide with unspeakable horror. "Charles, the hand. I saw it. Cold, dead hand." Charles stammered, his words tumbling over each other in his haste to escape the horrors of the bungalow. He didn't wait for Mike's response, instead bolting out of the house and disappearing into the gathering darkness. Mike stood there for a moment, paralyzed by fear. He knew he had to do something, but what? His mind raced, desperately seeking a solution. Then, a name flashed through his mind: the bishop. The villagers often spoke of the bishop's power over the unseen, his ability to banish evil and restore peace. With newfound determination, Mike raced out of the bungalow, his fear momentarily forgotten in the face of his friend's peril. He had to reach the bishop, and fast. The lives of his friends depended on it.